This is Ankur Patel, Systems Engineer at EMC. I'm going to talk today about doing long-term DR testing with RecoverPoint. So the problem that we see is that customers want to do long-term DR tests that can last many days or weeks. And how do we keep replication alive while DR testing has come up quite a bit. Traditionally with RecoverPoint, if you wanted to do this, you would need really large journals, and that's obviously a big limit. So one solution has been to go into direct access mode within RecoverPoint. Lets you do your DR test for as long as you want, but the problem is it doesn't keep replication in place, so you're exposed. Another option is to do a clone of the replica. Again, it lets you do your DR test for as long as you want. It does keep replication in place, but since you're doing cloning, it does require a full copy of extra capacity. Third option is to use the multi-copy feature, so basically sending two replicas to the same target. And what this will enable you to do is go into direct access mode with one copy and have the second copy continuously replicating for DR. With SRM, you can switch from one to the other. Not an official procedure, but one I saw that works. So first solution, we're going to define the problem. So here we can see a couple applications that I've got in VMware. You can see the data store that's running SRM RDC. If I go into the target site, you can see the placeholder VMs that were created by Site Recovery Manager. Essentially what we're going to show here is the replication sets. You can see the source and the target for this specific replication set. We're running on a couple of VNXs. So you can see that replication is going from RDC to the demo data center. If I go under the group policy tab, you can see that VMware SRM is controlling that first copy of replication. I'm going to go into test mode in Site Recovery Manager. We'll let that run. And if we go into the RecoverPoint screen, what we will eventually see is that it goes into image access mode, and here it is. And eventually you'll see that the host can now write to the storage at that second data center. If I go back into the SRM tool, you can see that it's going through the power on sequence for those VMs. And if I look here, this is the target data center, so the 3 VMs have started up. You can see the data store that it creates. If I go back into Site Recovery Manager, you can see that it's about done. So here it's done. You can see that it's running in logged access mode. What I'm going to do now is show you that if I go into Manage Recovery, you can see that the logged image access capacity is at 1%. This is basically where all the writes are stored when you're in that DR test mode. So now what I'll do is I'll go into my target VMs, I'll make some writes to show you, this is how we're doing an example DR test. So I'll go into the first application here, I'll log into it. Now what I'm going to do is I've got some files here, and to simulate a DR test, I'm just going to copy and paste it a bunch of times. So here what you will see is I'm doing writes to my target volumes, and if I go into RecoverPoint, you can see that the image log access capacity is increasing. Once it hits 100%, you pretty much have to choose whether to stop replication or stop your DR test. So one of the solutions that we have is to go into direct access mode. Again, here we're going to use the same scenario. Basically, to go into direct access mode, since this is controlled by VMware Site Recovery Manager, I'm going to first take it out of Site Recovery Manager control. Obviously, if you're not using Site Recovery Manager, then you don't have to go through this step here. But I'll put it back into RecoverPoint control. I will go into the consistency group itself, and I will go and change it into direct access mode. So again, direct access mode is basically where it will stop replication. Your writes at the target site are now going directly to the replica versus to the journal. So here you can see the journal will be lost, transfer will be paused. Click yes. And now you can see that it's paused the replication, so no longer am I protected from a DR event, but the host still has access to its storage. Now if I go in and do a bunch more writes to my VM at the target, you will see that I am not accumulating any more writes in the journal because, again, I'm not journaling any of those writes. So I'll hit save and close, or I can hit cancel. Cancel will basically get rid of that point in time, and it will resume replication. So once you're done with your long DR test, hit cancel, and it will resume replication. It will do a shorter init, right? It won't do a full replication. It'll just copy what's owed to the other data center. So now, of course, you can go and put it back into being controlled by Site Recovery Manager if you wish. So here you can see that we're resuming replication. It's obviously happening at a quicker rate than if I were to do a full resync. And now if I had an actual DR event, I could again go and use Site Recovery Manager to do a full failover. So here I'm doing the cleanup. All right, I finished my DR test. I'll go into Site Recovery Manager. I'll do a cleanup so that I'm prepared to do an actual DR test again, or do an actual failover in the event that I need to. Second solution is to actually go and create a clone of the replica. So again, here what we're going to do is I've got a different VM. You can see I've got an RDM here that is what we're going to take the clone of. So again, I'm going to go into image access mode for this one and take a clone. So just to show you that whole process, essentially what I will do is go into the Clone Wizard tool in the VMX. Again, you can do this manually. I'll select the storage array. I'll select the source LUN. So the source LUN is going to be that RecoverPoint target. If I want to, I can assign that clone to a server, or I can just leave it unmounted. So I'll assign it back to that same server. So now it's synchronizing the replica with the actual clone volume that it just created. And I'll let it synchronize here. Basically, once it's done synchronizing, I will go into image access mode. So again, the RecoverPoint replica and the clone are essentially in sync. Now I'm going to go into image access mode where it will just roll to a specific point in time. That clone will also be rolled to that point in time since it's attached to the replica. So here it's going through the actual image access. You'll see now, again, the host has access to the storage. But again, the real purpose of this was just to roll that replica to that point in time. So once that's done, I can go and fracture that clone. Once the clone is fractured, then I'm free to mount that clone up to whatever server I want to and make sure the data is legit. And I can do my DR test off that clone for as long as I want. I'm going to take that clone and add it into the storage group. As you can see, it's LUN number 6 of that ESX storage group. I'm going to log into that ESX server. I'll do a rescan of that server, and once I do that, I'll attach that RDM to another VM just to show you that all the data is there, and now we can do our DR test. So I've got this SQL server. I'm just going to attach that RDM to the SQL server. So I'll go into ESX, I'll add a hard disk. Again, it was LUN 6, so I'll find LUN 6 in this list and attach it to that ESX server. So I'll cancel my image access. So again, I've created that clone, I fractured it. So now that it's fractured, I have a known good point in time. I can get RecoverPoint out of image access mode so it can resume replication while I do all my work on the actual clone volume itself. So this is the FTP server that has the original data on it. So here on the SQL server, I'll go ahead and rescan its disks and basically show you that, hey, this is the actual data. I'll compare it to the storage on the original volume just to show you that it's the same. So here's the mounted volume. So you can see the list of folders in there. If you compare it to the previous list, you'll see that it's the same. So third option is basically to do the long-term DR test by adding a second copy of replication to the same target. So right now we've got a single replication target. Now we're going to add another replication target to the same destination storage array. So went into RecoverPoint again, went to that consistency group. I'm going to add another 100 gig volume to that replication. So again, I've got one source now replicating to two targets on the same destination array. So I'll go in here, I'll create a new replication set, I'll add a new journal. finish, and now it'll start replicating. So essentially, if I go back into SRM, what you'll see is now, again, I'm replicating from a single source to two targets. Those two targets happen to be on the same target frame. So fast forward here a bit just so that it can get in sync. Now I'm going to go into SRM, I'm going to run my test again. Now I'm going to go into RecoverPoint, and I'm going to put that copy one into direct access mode. So again, I have to take that copy and I have to put it back into RecoverPoint control. Once I do that, I can go into the consistency group and I can actually say enable direct access mode. So again, it's going to pause replication between site 1 and site 2, and it's going to continue giving you access to storage at that target data center so you can do your DR test for as long as you want. So I'll hit save. And here you can see I can still log into my DR VMs. I can do my DR testing, so I'll make a bunch of writes. You can see replication is still going on. Nothing changed there. If I go back into manage recovery, you can see the journal's not filling up again. So now I'm going to go into the SRM servers in both data centers. I'm just going to restart the SRM services since we've been changing in and out of SRM control. Now that I restarted them, now I'm going to go back into RecoverPoint. I'm going to go into the consistency group itself, and now I'm going to make it so that SRM is controlling site number 2, or copy number 2. So now that SRM is controlling copy number 2, again, I'm going to restart the SRM services in both data centers. So now let's say we have a case where we actually have a disaster in your primary site where you're needing to actually use SRM to fail over. So I'm going to simulate a disaster by shutting down the vCenter at the primary site and shutting down the RecoverPoint appliances at both sites. This will basically be the equivalent of if a data center went down. So I shut down the vCenter. I'm going to detach the RecoverPoint appliances from the cluster, which is the equivalent of shutting them down. Now if I go into RecoverPoint, you can see that it's throwing off a bunch of errors about replication stopping. You can see some of the groups are in an unknown state. And here you can actually see that the error pops up that replication has paused. There is no connectivity between the two clusters of RecoverPoint. If I go into the SRM consistency group, you can see that replication has paused. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and do a cleanup of Site Recovery Manager. And you can see that it can't connect to the RDC site because, again, that is down. So once it finishes its cleanup, then I will actually perform an actual failover. So again, this is a scenario that during your DR test you actually had a disaster and you need SRM to actually fail over your environment. So here I'm going to run the recovery plan, and it's going to run, basically it's going to make the target storage read, write, accessible, and bring up the VM. So again, you can see that it's throwing off errors that it can't connect to the site that is down, which makes sense since we shut that site down. You can see that now the host has access to the storage for that second copy that SRM is controlling. And you can see it's rescanning its HBAs and rescanning for volumes. It's mounted up the target SRM volume, and now it will start booting up those VMs. And now they're online. You can see that the host has access to the storage again. Those VMs are up and running, and now you've actually done your actual failover. So here's a couple settings that I've had to change. These are in some KB articles that I've read. So take a look. You can see certain timeout values that I've had to change. Again, they are in KB articles you can look at. These are the settings that I set on the actual SRM products. Again, it's more about timeouts and rescans. And that brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you for watching.